So welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another replay battle. This one is going to be on MORIA actually, and it's been quite a while since I've done that, but a bit of housekeeping before we get into that, and that is that my schedule is likely going to mean that the amount of videos I'm going to be able to chuck out per week is probably going to be going down for the foreseeable future. I think I'm only going to be able to manage 2, maximum 3 a week for the time being, which is rather unfortunate. The main factor in that, of course, is university, but there are other things as well. I wanted to be able to keep doing one video every 2 days, but that really isn't too... It's really not going to be possible, at least for the time being. I mean, I will still be putting out as many as I can when I have some free time, but if I'm not putting them out with the same regularity as people may be used to, then that will be why, because, you know, it's the sort of discussion which maybe deserves its own update video, but to be honest, I feel as though most people won't mind anyway. But for those of you who might wonder as to why some of the frequency of the videos is going down, that will be why. But for the time being, let's get back into MORIA. And for the army competitions, we'll go through the defenders first of all. This is going to be, I think, a 3v2, which is actually a pretty good scaling for MORIA, because MORIA, of course, is quite choke pointy, so more armies just makes it more grindy, to be honest. But we have, of course, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, who are, of course, on home turf, and we have Olhaga playing as the dwarves of Khazad-dûm. We've got a couple of units here of the Orc Hunters, very high missile damage, and based on the fact that it's going to be difficult to return fire into their ranks, the defenders should be pretty good with using them. They don't have crossbows, of course, but their bow capabilities are still very high with that pretty high missile damage. The sentries of Khazad-dûm as well are going to be a very important part of this defence, of course. Very reliable and solid pikemen. 4 of those before the cost increases. At the front over here, where they will be meeting the enemy first of all, we have some 2nd Legion with the upgraded armour, and just in behind them we also have some 3rd Legion, of course, which are the standard infantry variant, and another unit of 2nd Legion. So the 2nd Legion with the upgraded armour, the 3rd Legion are just standard, but as a first line of defence this is going to be pretty good. But they need to be careful they don't get overwhelmed, otherwise these units could be wasted pretty easily. And then back here we have the rest of the Khazad-dûm army, including the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, which in this sort of situation, of course, are going to be very, very powerful. You know, the close confines of MORIA means that they're going to be in range very easily, and they've got a high missile base damage, of course. And then when they're out of ammunition, they are very potent shock troopers as well. And over here we have some sentries, and then just buried in with them you can see the Legion Bodyguard, the Mithril Guard, and the Guards of Khazad-dûm, and some Sons of the Fallen, in addition to the catapults. They've gone for a very small but elite army, and that could pay off, because if anyone can make that work in terms of a grindy fight, it will be the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm. The Guards of Khazad-dûm, after all, have that 3 HP, which is almost unheard of in this patch. They might be the only infantry unit that has that, actually. But they are not alone in this endeavour. They are fighting alongside Murdar, who is playing as Dol Amroth, and they are far from home to be fighting in MORIA. But their General's Bodyguard is, of course, the Haven Guard, so again, a very powerful infantry unit, multiple HP swordsmen. They'll be able to cut their way through lower tier troops very, very easily. They are, of course, one of the most powerful single units in the game. So they fit right in, fighting alongside the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm. Over here, looks like we've got 2 units of Talon Knights as well, which you can have 2 of these before the cost increases, but they do cost 1200. So in most situations it's not recommended that you do that, but in a siege like this, maybe it'll pay off. He's also got 2 units of the Black Swan Vanguard, which are of course not multiple HP, but they are armour piercing, and they're a similar sort of price range to stuff like the Castamir's Chosen and the Lucca Flag Rim. And then over here we also have some Nimrodel Rangers, which of course in a defensive siege, having a ranger unit on the defence is almost a necessity if you have them, because they're so good. There's an altar here. But yes, as we move down through the rest of the Dol Amroth ranks, we can see that the vast majority of their army is going to be setting up over here in the wider section of the Mines of MORIA, and they've got a couple of units here of the Adalind Men-at-Arms with the armour upgrade. And then moving over we also have a couple of units of the Tirith Air Wardens, which are of course the slightly higher tier spear unit. They're not AP like the higher tier Gondorian spears, but they are still very, very resilient, and they should be able to help counteract any mass pushes that come their way. Also a Dol Amroth catapult over here, not going to be as good, of course, as the multi-shot Khazad-dûm catapult, but still should be pretty good in this situation. I think at the moment as well, these Blackroot Vale archers might be rangers, although I'm not entirely sure about that. But Dol Amroth and Mirkwood might have 2 ranger units available to them. I'm not entirely sure again. But over here we also have some Adalind Halberdiers. Of course, halberds are very good in this sort of situation with their AP and with their ability to keep things at arm's length. A unit of Tirith Air Marksmen as well. A unit of Tarnostian Guard as well, which, you know, they're sort of the basic spears, the equivalent to the Gondor Spearmen in their neighbouring faction. Over here we've got some Doran Ernil's Swordsmen, which you know, as a militia tier sword unit, they're definitely going to be here just to pad out the line and not much else. And then we've got some more halberdiers, and then finally we have some Tirathea marksmen, which are immediately obviously going to fall back, but they put their stakes down to prevent any cavalry from running into the settlement. So, first of all, we shall have a look out here at the first of the attacking armies, and we have Steph playing as Umbar, and we've got some Corsair infantry, in addition to some regular Corsairs, so just a basic Umbarim over here. And then we also have an Umbar catapult, which again, over here, might be pretty good. They do need to be careful that it doesn't get immediately focused down by the Dol Amroth catapult, because of course the onus is on Umbar to move forward. Over here, the General, Castamir himself, is going to be in the Naru Naaru Royal Archers, which are a very powerful archer unit. Actually, you may notice as well that the unit scaling is kind of lower, but that's actually pretty good because it means the blood fights won't cause my frame rate to die. A very cool looking unit as well. I think Umbar might be my favourite looking faction overall in the game at the moment, and I also like playing as them, so they definitely have a lot of feathers to their bow in my opinion. As we have over here, we have the Harbingers of Castamir, again, probably my favourite looking unit in the game at the moment. They are incredibly good looking, and they are a dual swordsman unit, so they are very difficult to take down in a sustained melee, in addition to being multiple HP. As far as being functional goes though, I have noticed they're not really as strong as you might expect them to be based on their looks in many situations. They can still be good in a blob fight, but that's basically all they're good at. You do need to keep them away from archer fire, because in spite of the multiple HP and the relatively high armor values, they are still unshielded. Over here we have the Castamir's Chosen, of course. Pretty expensive infantry units, but overall you can have quite a lot of them before the cost increases, and that makes Umbar's frontline potentially very, very quality heavy. And then over here we also have some Abrazani Narduzagar, again a skill-based swordsman, which is good they're up against Dol Amroth and not against the dwarves, because of course armor piercing would be more useful over there. We've also got some Numenorian Shield Guard and some Belagaya Halberdiers, which are of course going to be pretty decent at matching one-to-one with the Adalind. I think the Dol Amroth Halberds are slightly better, but of course Umbar will have the numbers advantage, and they will of course have some reinforcements in the shape of, I don't know why there's jungle trees over here now, but here they are. We have 420 No Scope, who is playing as Isengard, and the Uruk-hai Berserkers are here. Multiple HP, but very little in the way of armor and defensive values. And then over here we have the Uruk-hai Pikemen, backed up by some Uruk-hai Archers, the Dunland Clansmen as well, and of course the Uruk-hai Infantry. The Uruk-hai Crossbow is going to be one of the most significant portions of this army. And we also have some more Dunland Clansmen. Moving through, there's just a lot of Uruk-hai units, archers, pikes, crossbows, and a fair amount of infantry as well. And then of course we also have a catapult, which is interesting. I probably would have punted for a ballista actually if I was the orcs. And then we also have these Trolls of the White Hand, which are of course going to be very good line breakers. They're very, very tough to take down as well actually. Probably my favourite troll unit overall in the game at the moment. Isengard do need them a little bit more as well. And then I was just wondering where their general was, but I believe he must be in this unit of Nazkai, because of course they are like the super variant of the Berserkers. And then as we move across to the other side of the field, the final army is a Lucky Hussars, who sent me the replay, so a big thank you to him. We have some Cave Trolls, which are the best line breakers of all the trolls, but they aren't as good in sustained combat as many of the other trolls. They essentially fulfill the role of the Blackwatch Legion. Misty Mountains are very strong in the current patch, and they've got a lot of armor piercing to help try and deal with those Khazad-dûm units. So we've got a lot of heavy goblin spears, which could be used to push or simply to hold and try and wear the enemy down with their AP values. We also have the Ram being pushed by a unit of goblin infantry. A catapult as well, so every faction I think has brought a catapult in this battle. Some troll drummers to keep the goblins in check, another unit of cave trolls to help with the push, a lot of goblin infantry for numbers, and then as we move back here we've got some goblin archers, and then the final vestiges of the army, we've got some mountain orc berserkers, and then the general is in a unit of blackback mountain berserkers, which of course means they won't be able to hide, but then hiding on Moria is not really the most important thing. Be interesting to see how they do later on against some of those really elite units. So without further ado, let us begin. So Moria is quite a grindy settlement to take on most of the time, and I can't imagine that's going to change here. Especially considering that the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm themselves are here. They favour a more grindy style of fighting, trying to wear down their opponents, and actually the Misty Mountains often may want to engage in that sort of thing as well, with all of the AP they have available to them in the shape of those spears. But of course it's going to be those cave trolls which I would be most concerned about with Khazad-dûm, because the cave trolls can smash through even a pretty well crafted dwarven line, and the 2nd Legion and 3rd Legion will be pretty powerless to stop that, but we shall see where that leads. Meanwhile, if we have a look on the other side, we can see obviously Dol Amroth have set up their formation. I'm not sure what this is doing over here, because of course they could be very quickly sort of enveloped, but then again, I guess the Umbar and Isengard over here probably won't want to charge in too quickly because of the presence of that catapult, so maybe that's what they're doing. Leaving these guys over here as a gambit, and then leaving a nice open space for their catapult to shoot into. But again, only single units here, so the lines are relatively thin, and particularly this is an area which is going to fall eventually, because even if they do manage to hold off Umbar, when the second wave comes from Isengard, probably not going to be lasting too much longer after that. And over here we can see the Corsairs are going to be knocking down the gate. And the Corsairs, of course, they only cost 200 florins, so they are very much the chaff of Umbar. And you can afford to bring quite a lot of them to pound your army out, but don't expect them to do too much damage. Obviously, they are a fodder unit through and through. Very vulnerable to arrow fire as well, needless to say. But Umbar does have a relatively small army, so they will need the support of Isengard to get through this rather nasty Dol Amroth defence. As we go over to the other side, as I bury the camera in the cliff, we can also see that this reinforced gate is about to go down. So the Misty Mountains are going to be the first ones to advance in by the looks of things, although this Goblin infantry won't get too far on its own. They might try and shoot in with the catapult. Of course, this is a 32,000 frame battle, which is relatively long battle, and indeed the Doors of Khazad-dûm, I think they see the folly of trying to defend up there with only a token force, so they are going to go down here and use the cover of the terrain to escape that catapult essentially. Need to be careful of this cluster over here though, and also this means they're going to be in range of their archers and their own catapult. And the Misty Mountains doesn't really have much of a choice other than to charge through this area. The attackers don't have much of a choice either way. They can't really skirmish in, so in stark contrast to both Orthanc and Hobbiton, Moria is the kind of battle whereas the attackers, you need to bring a lot of fodder just so you can survive the amount of ranged superiority that the defenders will have in the early game. And actually the Misty Mountains are going to send their Goblin infantry forward first. They have these sentries of Khazad-dûm, but there are ways around the pikes over here, so they might want to make their formation a little wider. And in fact the 3rd Legion are going to move in, so they're going to move forward and just try and crush these Goblin infantry quickly. Which is not a bad idea, because they are unsupported and they will not stand a chance against these highly trained Dwarven legionaries, I should say, not legion men. Yes, obviously Goblin infantry, no match in a sustained fight. But there are more coming forward, and there are Goblin archers actually, and low tier archers can pay for themselves relatively easily, so those Orc hunters need to be a little careful, because they're probably the one target in the Khazad-dûm army which is relatively weak to that sort of thing, in addition to the sentries. And now here come the Goblin infantry and the heavy Goblin spears, so the Misty Mountains are quickly going to move forward to try and overwhelm this single unit of 3rd Legion. And they will be able to manage this if they don't send forward some support, although the 3rd Legion, I think they're going to actually retreat, which is probably the best way forward. Some 3rd Legion men did die. However, the Goblin infantry was also cut largely in half. Just probing the lines here, trying to bait the Goblins into attacking their pipeline more than anything else. Well, let's go back over to the other side and see what's going on. You can see these Corsairs are moving in. They're immediately finding themselves under arrow fire. Well, actually, it's the Uruk-hai archers that are going to be skirmished down here. Corsairs and the archers do need to be careful here, because they don't want to just throw them away, although they will be using up the ammunition of these Dol Amroth units, which will be good for Umbar later on with all of those elite infantry that they've got. The catapult is still going to be a presence here. Also, there were some Corsair archers that were hidden. They're a unit that can hide. They're actually relatively expensive considering, what low tier archers used to cost. Those Uruk-hai are just being absolutely shredded there. Meanwhile, if we go back over to the other side, oh, now that's an unfortunate thing for the dwarves there. Their catapult is now firing, but the Misty Mountains catapult with a very lucky hit there on the Dwarven catapult. As we have a look at the front line though, you can see that victory actually seems certain for the Misty Mountains, although there are these 3rd Legion which are sort of shoring up the sides. That Dwarven catapult needs to start shooting relatively quickly, otherwise it's going to find itself destroyed before it's done any kind of damage. That's a lot of damage that the Dwarven archers have done, however. No, another miss. I mean, to be honest, if I were the dwarves, I would want to just sort of break this large cluster of units over here, rather than going after the Misty Mountains catapult, but that's just me. Have a look as the arrows fly overhead. The Goblin infantry and the heavy Goblin spears. And the heavy Goblin infantry are sort of trying to push through here. The pikes should be able to hold them at bay for quite a long time, however, and I would actually expect this fight to flick back in favour of the dwarves eventually. But there's a lot of reinforcements over here, so the dwarves going on a wave by wave basis. Another Khazad-dûm catapult goes down, so that's really unfortunate for the dwarven defenders here, because this was a perfect kill zone for the dwarven catapult with its multi-shot. They do manage to kill a Misty Mountains catapult now, but with only one artillery piece left, I can't imagine that they're going to last too much longer. The Goblin Archers trying to shoot into this big old blob over here, but all of these units are relatively well armoured and pretty difficult to kill, so I can't imagine that the 2nd Legion, and especially not the 3rd Legion, are going to be falling away anytime soon. Dwarven catapult getting some collateral damage there on those Goblin Archers. And yeah, looks like victory is going to be for the dwarves over here. And of course the Misty Mountains have got plenty more troops where that came from. And they have had the better of the artillery engagements thus far. Meanwhile, you can also see over here that the attack is starting to begin with these Corsair infantry. Again, I said at the start that I was a little bit concerned about this area over here, and they are wrapping around these isolated units. And the Adalind Halberdiers, when they're attacked in the side, they're going to be very quickly finding themselves outmatched by even lesser units. The Doran Ernil Swordsmen, actually victory seems certain for them, but it does look like another unit of lower tier troops are going to be sent forward by no scope. And the Dunland Clansmen should be enough to help wrap these units around. It's a very sort of tentative attack thus far, and I can see why, because obviously MORIA, it's not the easiest place to attack, although actually a unit of Uruk-hai infantry came in here to attack the front of these Halberdiers, which in my opinion is a little bit foolhardy. The Uruk-hai infantry were never really going to be able to force their way through an armour-piercing polearm like that, and especially not when they're going to be backed up by a unit of relatively decent spears like the Tarnostian Guard. That is a nasty firing line for Dol Amroth, though. Honestly, with the amount of archers Dol Amroth had, it might have been worth the attacker's time to just try and come in here all guns blazing and try and smash Dol Amroth to bits very quickly. Because while this cautious approach will make it so that the Dol Amroth archers can't hit any important targets, it does mean that their fodder is going to be ripped to shreds, and their numbers advantage will rapidly start to close in with the defenders, and you can see actually that the percentage of the attackers killed is much higher. The Doran Ernil Swordsman now defeat seems certain. These Dunland Clansmen getting into the rear of these Adalind Halberdiers, and slowly but surely these halberds will fall over time as they continue to send in these lower tier units to deal with them. But eventually they're going to have to move forward, and then we shall see how the defenders deal with a full assault. You can see over here the Uruk-hai infantry are very quickly dealt with by the superior numbers, in addition to the AP damage that those Adalind Halberdiers can do. Well, if you have a look over here, just in front of the bridge of Khazad-dûm, the heavy goblin spears putting themselves into shield wall and pushing into the formation, which is the bane of any pipeline. They are now in full view of the archers, and the archers are targeting them, but the heavy goblin spears have got decent armour values. And of course they are shielded. There's only one Misty Mountains catapult left. There's no dwarven catapults left, so unfortunately we won't be seeing the cluster catapult in full effect in this battle. You can just see as the spearmen, they did manage to push in, but they didn't push all the way through. And at this point, if I were the Misty Mountains, I'd probably send forward another unit of men just to sort of complete this victory and push through this line. Looks like the dwarves are actually moving up that hill over there. Which is an interesting move, because again the attackers could just elect to go straight for the town centre through here. And considering that most of the units, the dwarven units over there are skirmishers, that probably won't... That's not the sort of line that's going to hold up too long, particularly against the likes of cave trolls. Yeah, the dwarven line is actually still holding fast. I mean, I can't imagine they're going to win with this amount of troops. They might actually. I mean, it is primarily heavy goblins that are over here. So the pikes and what's left of the 3rd Legion over here might be able to turn this around, and particularly if this 2nd Legion decides to join the fight. These Goblin Archers are moving up, another unit of Misty Mountains forces are coming up, the Goblin Archers. So there are 2 units of Goblin Archers, so more skirmishers. I think the Misty Mountains need some more infantry on the front line, however. Although in a grindy fight like this, I'm not sure who would prevail, the outright numbers of the Misty Mountains, or Khazad-dûm with their quality and their armour. Well, let's go back over to the other side. You can actually see the Tarnostian Guard came over here to rescue the Adalind Halberdiers, and it looks like they've succeeded largely. It is largely lower tier units that are over here after all, so the Corsair infantry and the Dunland Clansmen found themselves rapidly outmatched. There's another unit of Dunland Clansmen that came in over here, though. At this point I would probably either pull them back or send forward more troops. It does look like they are going to send forward more men. Corsair Archers, crossbow Corsairs I would not send forward yet, because they are probably the most fragile of all the crossbows. Maybe the runic crossbows are, But the same philosophy applies, where as soon as the archers see them, they're going to start targeting them down. Although Umbar's coming forward with a lot of decent units now, so they've got their Castamers chosen, and their halberds, and some Abrazani. And of course, the presence of this higher quality Umbaran infantry is going to inspire the catapult to action relatively quickly. Again, you've got these halberds moving forward. This is probably going to be pretty costly for the Umbar player, laying down their life essentially so that Isengard can carry on their legacy in the late game. They should do a decent amount of damage to a lot of these Umbar forces. Dol Amroth forces, I should say. I mean, these halberds are sort of forming up once again. Those crossbows are in position now, though. And if those crossbows are allowed to get continuous fire off, then it's going to be pretty ugly. Here comes some Númenórean shield guard. That was a direct hit. That's very unfortunate for the Umbar player. Onto those Balagaya halberds, and they're immediately shaken. A grazing blow at best on those Castamers chosen. But yeah, with the arrow fire, it's going to be very, very ugly for the Abrazanim and the Balagaya halberds on the approach. But that is the kind of build that Dol Amroth have gone for. They've gone for very skirmish heavy here. They've gone for several units of archers. A bit of friendly fire there into those Adalind Halberdiers, which might actually send them routing, which would be very unfortunate for them. And indeed they are routed, so the only unit that's left out over here now are a unit of isolated Tarnostian Guard, who are going to be no match in a sustained fight like this for the Castamers chosen. Isengard are now also coming forward, the Uruk-hai pikemen again. This is probably why I would have elected to just sort of charge forward with everything I had, because the Dol Amroth front line, now that they're sort of being engaged in melee by Umbar and Isengard, will slowly start to crumble because they don't have the numbers to shore up this front line because of the amount of skirmishers they've elected to bring. And this ultimately will lead to them having to retreat to the town centre pretty quickly, I think, which might expose some of their weaknesses, especially seeing as Isengard still have a fair amount of troops left. There's a lot of blue outside the settlement still. Also, these Halberdiers are actually getting their formation a little bit crumbled by the Abrazanim, getting into a sustained fight. They should break before they do any real damage, but even so, unsupported halberds in a line as thin as this, their formation is more likely to break. And the Uruk-hai pikemen are going to fight with the Tarnostian Guard over here, although the pikes, of course, are being targeted by the archers. But this, of course, means that the crossbow corsairs have been relatively untouched so far. I mean, well, actually, I say that, there are only 22 of them remaining. Yeah, it does look like the Umbar and Isengard skirmish line has also been attacked by the Dol Amroth forces, but even so, see these Tarnostian Guard completely surrounded now by Númenórean shield guard as well. Let's go back over here and see how the Misty Mountains are getting on. I'm in the roof. But yes, the cave trolls have moved forward, and this has been sufficient to essentially break the dwarven front line, as it always was going to be. As soon as the cave trolls come forward against a front line that's been fighting for quite a long time, there's really going to be no option but to retreat. The troll drummers are also keeping these lower tier units in check. The sentries of Khazad-dûm are shaken, and pikes like this are going to be no match for trolls in a situation like this, with their mighty hammers crushing these dwarves. And of course this means that the Misty Mountains have managed to get past the first layer of defences. The Orc Hunters are still firing in at what? I'm not sure. I think they're trying to kill the troll drummers. But honestly, the troll drummers have got hit points, so they're going to be able to tank a lot of that arrow fire. And now the Misty Mountains forces are actually not going to go across the bridge, which I'm not sure I agree with. I think going after the skirmishers would have been exactly the right thing to do here. What's going on up here? They've got a unit of Legion bodyguard. Well, they have got the Khazad-dûm reclaimers, actually. Khazad-dûm reclaimers would have been pretty rough. And so they're going to actually be sending their forces all the way around here. And actually, it is another unit of pikes that are over here as well. And a pike unit like this, again, is not going to do much to the cave trolls. But the presence of the cave trolls also means they're not going to be allowed to get into formation. Now, the 2nd Legion should do a decent amount of damage to the cave trolls, and seeing as they've already seen combat, I would imagine they're going to fall away relatively fast. Having said that, the Misty Mountains are definitely on a roll over here. If they can keep this momentum going, then the Dwarven defence might be in some serious trouble. There's another unit of Orc Hunters up here which are going to be firing down, but their position is rather tenuous considering all of these men are, well, all of these orcs and goblins are very, very angry, and it looks like they're going to be able to smash through the lines very quickly with the help of these trolls. 2nd Legion taking some casualties as well. Cave trolls are a very potent tool for the Misty Mountains, I must say. Meanwhile, the outer vestiges of the Dol Amroth defence have fallen, and indeed Dol Amroth are now in full retreat largely. The Adalind Halberdiers are gone. There's Tarnostian Guard, which we did actually see try to push into the Uruk-hai pike formation, didn't get very far. And so the skirmish heavy approach of Dole Amroth is coming back to bite them a little bit here, because they definitely didn't have the men to sort of cover, particularly the wider section of Moria. It might have been more prudent for them to be on the other side with all of their skirmishers and let the dwarves try and handle this larger section of terrain, particularly with their multi-shot catapult. But even so, Dole Amroth are now in full retreat. A couple of units of Blackroot Vale archers who are out of ammunition. I'm not sure their catapult's going to get away, actually, if the Uruk-hai and the Umbaran chase it down with enough fervour. Well, over here, the cave trolls have started to fall away now. So as soon as trolls' HP is depleted, they will fall away quite quickly, and the cave trolls are relatively similar to mountain trolls in terms of stats. They are not the strongest. But the troll drummers are also over here, however, and the 2nd Legion victory seems certain. They're holding back a lot of these orcs. We get in, see that troll up close. The Uruk-hai will be as big as the troll drummers in the coming hotfix, I believe, which will be good to see. Oh my. As we go across here, the bridge of Khazad-dûm was attacked. The goblins trying to move across it, but the Mithril Guard standing in the way. But once again, the cave trolls are over here, but this time they didn't really smash through the line as such. Going on over here. The guards of Khazad-dûm, there are only 12 of them left. The unit that has 3 HP has almost been completely flattened already by a combined assault from the trolls and the huge goblin horde. There's also those goblin archers back on the hill over there. So all of these elite dwarven units. Things are not going too well. Admittedly, I think the defenders here are bitten off a little bit more than they can chew. I mean, if we have a look, the percentages are relatively close, however, so the attackers have been made to pay for this. But the amount of ground they've made on the defenders is pretty significant, and ultimately I think with a lot of these elite units like the dwarves of like the guards of Khazad-dûm and the Mithril Guard starting to fall away rapidly, I think the quality of the attackers will shine through in the late game. Stuff like the Harbingers, the Nazkai, the Trolls of the White Hand, going to be a little bit too difficult to deal with, I think. The Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are just throwing their axes into this massive blob. So as we have a look through, just trying to cycle through to see what the defenders actually have left. They've got a lot of troops over here, but a lot of it is archers and sort of basic units as well. They do still have quite a lot of the elite Dole Amroth units, which they're going to be relying on to do an awful lot of heavy lifting now. These Blackroot Vale archers trying to stop the Uruk-hai archers, presumably to buy more time for the catapult to get away. But yeah, those Blackroot Vale archers are now going to try and retreat. So it's going to be a little bit of a slog for the attackers to get up that hill and then lay siege to the town centre. Meanwhile, over here, I mean, if I were the dwarves, I'd be honestly thinking about trying to retreat at this point. But the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, who are out of ammunition, now charging into melee and immediately taking a direct hit from that catapult. Heavy goblin infantry back there as well. The cave trolls are still alive, and the cave trolls have been real MVPs for the Misty Mountains so far. They've done an awful lot of damage to units. Very important targets. They smashed through the front line, dealt with a lot of pikemen, and now this unit of cave trolls, with the assistance of the goblin main line, has managed to do a lot of damage to the Mithril Guard and to the guards of Khazad-dûm. They've largely destroyed both of those units, actually. And that just goes to show, I mean, elite units like the guards of Khazad-dûm and the Mithril Guard, they are very strong, but if you send them in on their own against a horde like this, they will not do it all by themselves. They need help. And that could yet be something which the dwarves live to regret. Heavy goblin spears taking a little bit of friendly fire there. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers' defeat seems certain. They are not multiple HP, of course, in melee. But they are a shock troop, an armour-piercing shock troop of that. There's still a cave troll alive over here. But yeah, these 2nd Legion are now completely surrounded. They fought valiantly and presumably got a ton of kills. But ultimately it's not going to be enough. Like the Mountain Berserkers and the heavy goblin infantry around them. And also with the cave trolls. Well, not the cave trolls, the troll drummers stood right there, inspiring all the goblins to greater feats of bravery. There's also one cave troll left alive over there, as the Sons of the Fallen are coming forward. And I think this is one of the Dwarven player's mistakes so far. He's sort of tried to commit his troops piecemeal, one unit at a time, at least sort of in a general sense. Like, he's not really sent forward like, this was really the closest thing he had to a sort of full force over here, and it lasted the longest amount of time, whereas over here he had like one unit of pikes and one unit of axemen. Over here he just had his individual units of elites, which, if you spread your army that thin, especially against the force as numerous and as potentially deadly as the orcs of the Misty Mountains with all of their armour piercing, you're going to be made to pay for it quite dearly. And now these Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are suffering the same fate. They're all on their own without any sort of support, and the goblins are just going to run over them.
Only half our force remains.
Half the Misty Mountains force is gone now. So the Misty Mountains have paid for trying to go through the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, but I can't help but feel like Khazad-dûm should have been victorious over here. I feel as though Khazad-dûm, in this sort of situation, on home turf as well, have got all of the tools necessary to deal with the Orcs and the Misty Mountains, particularly with the catapult and with the amount of pikes and the amount of elite troops they can field. I feel as though committing individual units at once, though, has kind of been a bit of a mistake thus far, and the Khazad-dûm reclaimers have routed off. So that leaves really this area over here is the only place where there's still fighting going on, and that actually didn't last too long. Once again, yeah, it looks like the Sons of the Fallen are going to be pulling back, so it's going to be a fight for the town centre as we rapidly approach the halfway point of this battle. And over here, actually, you can see that the Uruk-hai are already here, so 420 no-scope has come forward.
Our foe has lost control of the city.
That catapult is going to be very key. You can see here that the Uruk-hai infantry are moving in, but they are going to be immediately surrounded by Adalind men-at-arms, so they should be dealt with pretty quickly. Individually, actually, I think the Uruk-hai infantry are better than the Adalind men-at-arms, on account of having normally superior numbers. But in this sort of situation, they do find themselves quite outmatched. I don't know why the camera just did that, but there you go. And now here comes some Uruk-hai berserkers. Catapult immediately starting to fire. The Uruk-hai berserkers are going to be extremely devastating to a unit like the Adalind men-at-arms. The berserkers in general are quite a tricky unit to make the most of usually in a field battle because they are so weak to arrow fire. And the trolls actually thinking better of coming in here, which is probably a wise decision. But the Uruk-hai berserkers are immediately being targeted down by archers, and it's the Nimrodel rangers as well. And with their body piercing, the Uruk-hai berserkers, despite their multiple HP, will still start to fall away pretty quickly. The Adalind men-at-arms actually trying to pull back to give the rangers a better shot by the looks of things. Not going to work out too well. Look over here, the Sons of the Fallen just waiting. The Misty Mountains, the noose is tightening on the defenders here. It's definitely going to be a last stand for the ages here. I'd be very surprised if the defenders can pull this out at this stage. They'll have to lean on the Dol Amroth elites quite heavily, considering most of the Dwarven ones are already dead. Those Uruk-hai berserkers just got shredded by the Nimrodel rangers. Those rangers may very well be their ace in the hole for the defenders here. Although the trolls are coming forward, but again the trolls are coming forward on their own, which is not the best move. They really need to be supported. Although those Blackroot Vale archers are going to be destroyed extremely quickly. But of course the advantage of being right here in the town centre is that the defenders won't really rout. They will fight to the end unless you have perpetually routing units like this, which is a weird bug. But for the most part, the defenders can count on not routing off the battlefield, whereas the attackers will certainly not have that advantage. It's a very relatively thin line. The Misty Mountains catapult is also here. Here come the Uruk-hai infantry again. I'm not sure I would have sent forward these Tarnostian guard to their deaths. Every man counts at this late stage in the battlefield, and the defenders can't afford to throw men away in quite so blasé a fashion as this. And they're also, like, Numenorean Shield Guard and Uruk-hai infantry are not exactly a soft target. Uruk-hai infantry, I think they're getting a bit of a buff in the hotfix as well. And they're already pretty strong. It's mainly their cost efficiency which is in question at the moment. You can see there's still a lot of men left alive. Carving right through those Uruk-hai crossbows, and the crossbows are a worthy target because they are just potentially so dangerous a threat in this sort of situation, although they are having to arc their shots, which is going to mean a lot of their power is gone. They're actually going after the catapult as well, which is honestly not the worst thing for the defenders for them to go after.
Like this, the enemy is no longer in command of the city.
And over here you can see the Sons of the Fallen forming the first line of defence. I'm not sure why those heavy goblin infantry and spears said victory seemed certain then, but these heavy goblin units are obviously not going to be able to get past the Sons of the Fallen. The Mountain Orc Berserkers with their AP will do a slightly better job at helping them out. But again, I feel as though sending forward just one unit to try and hold back this slew of goblins, which are still all the way as far back as the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, probably not the best idea. They need a more comprehensive defence, I feel. Although they are going to be attacked on all sides by the looks of things, so I think they are going to be coming around that way as well. So the Misty Mountains are divided, more so than Umbar and Isengard, who are going to be able to focus their forces a lot more directly here. And that Dol Amroth catapult's got some decent hits thus far. Whether it'll be enough to pay for itself remains to be seen. But the trolls are in here now, but they are immediately going to be under the attack of some Talon Knights as well. But we saw how deadly the cave trolls can be in a sustained fight. The trolls of the White Hand are much more deadly. They are much more of a sustained combat sort of troll, as opposed to the cave trolls, which are just sort of intended to break lines, and that's their entire reason for being. But as soon as these hit points go down, the trolls of the White Hand will fall, and then probably, in terms of a single unit, the most stopping power the attackers have on this side will be gone. And it'll be up to stuff like the Nazkai and the Harbingers of Castamere to bring down the Talon Knights and the Black Swans. Because the Misty Mountains, I feel like they will run out of steam eventually, because they're only one army, whereas Isengard and Umbar are, of course, two armies. Still some Tirithea Wardens over there as well. Those Rangers and Tirithea Marksmen just firing into the blob. Talon Knights, you know, you see how quickly the Talon Knights were just torn apart by the Trolls. In sustained combat, a multiple HP elite infantry unit, you don't want to put them near Trolls, because Trolls will cut through them like butter. Because under normal circumstances, the Talon Knights would have been very good in this situation, but they were a victim of the Trolls, and now this other unit is threatening to go in there as well, which is definitely not the sort of thing you want to be doing. Meanwhile over here, the Goblins have moved forward, they're trying to push through the lines. But both units of Sons of the Fallen are here, so it's definitely not the easiest task in the world, and just in case, there are the Legion Bodyguard in the background as well, providing that morale buff.
Our foe has taken control of the city.
Not that the Sons of the Fallen are especially susceptible to routing anyway. The Dwarves in general are a little bit disappointing in terms of morale, but their high tier units will still hold the line for a long time. Over here, the Nimrodel Rangers continuing to fire. Looks like the Trolls of the White Hand are starting to fall away now. Actually, no, there are still 6 of them, so all of them are still alive. Those Adalind men-at-arms still holding the line.
The enemy is no longer in command of the city.
Catapult's still firing in. What's the percentages looking like? Well, the attackers are ahead by 1%, which is not a great situation for the defenders to be in. All of these skirmishers continuing to do their work. There's a troll embedded in the wall. I think that's actually one of the troll drummers. Catapult's also coming up, but the catapult doesn't really have the best shot. I mean, it's going to need to get through these Sons of the Fallen to get a good shot into the juicy centre of the defence over here. Yeah, these goblins. I don't know why it says victory is a distinct possibility. I can't imagine that. I mean, I suppose it's the Blackback Berserkers. Fair enough. If they're on the front line attacking the Sons of the Fallen, then that makes a good deal of sense. Some Adalind Halberdiers coming into the front line, holding back these Uruk-hai pikes. These Adalind men-at-arms as well have done a relatively good job here of holding back the tide. That wasn't good for the defenders, but they immediately respond in kind by destroying the attacking catapult. And meanwhile, the other source of the attack over here from the Goblins, there's one cave troll left alive. But over here it's mainly heavy Goblins, and the heavy Goblins will not stand a chance against the Black Swan Vanguard and the Haven Guard. So yeah, the Goblins should be relatively out of luck here, but just the fact that they're pressuring every choke point is the important thing here, so that's good play from a lucky Hussar. But at this point I would actually send these Black Swan Vanguard elsewhere at the battlefield, because I think they are needed. These Nimrodel Rangers are still firing into this blob, and they're still doing a huge amount of work. I mean, if not for these Rangers, I think the defence would be in extreme trouble. There's actually a cave troll in behind the lines over here. It's definitely very annoying when a single troll gets in amongst your archers like this, but the Legion Bodyguard will be enough to bring down a single troll, which has seen a lot of combat. And over here, the Talon Knights were recommitted over here to help shore up the line. The Trolls of the White Hand are back. And actually this part of the line is looking a little thin, so I think the Tirithea Wardens are going to come forward to help shore up the line. Or are they? Looks like they're going over to the Dwarven front. Both units of Tirithea Wardens are going to be committed now. Bringing down these Trolls to the White Hand has proven to be a bit of a nightmare so far. Is that over there? The Harbingers of Castamere are getting close to the front line as well, which, you know, they might trade relatively evenly with the Talon Knights. The Harbingers will probably win that, actually, based on their higher attack values. The Talon Knights are more of a holding unit. Those Corsair Archers still have ammunition. The crossbows do as well. As the Trolls continue to try and take down these Dol Amroth men. The Tirithea Wardens are coming forward, trying to get into those crossbows by the looks of things. And now the clash of the Titans over here as the Harbingers of Castamere go toe-to-toe with the Talon Knights and Adalind men-at-arms. The Isengard catapult crew's texture is all kinds of messed up. But they're in the front line as well. But it's going to be the arrow fire, which I think is going to tilt this fight in favour of the defenders. But these Trolls of the White Hand have just tanked so much damage. But there are only 5 of them, so that means their hit points must be expended if one of them has fallen away. And actually these Tirithea Wardens, with the help of the Sons of the Fallen, have managed to push these goblins back down the ramp a little bit. And you can see that the Trolls of the White Hand are now starting to fall away rather rapidly, and this is the last sort of healthy troll unit they have other than the Drummers. And the Drummers are not really that much better than the Catapult crew in melee. The Troll Catapult crew, that is. And these Black Swan Vanguard are now moving forwards. Looks like the Goblins over here have been largely dealt with entirely. I mean, yeah, everything's routing over here, so now they still have some Black Swan Vanguard on patrol over here, but this Haven Guard and the other unit of Black Swan Vanguard are going to be available to commit elsewhere in the battlefield. The danger of the crossbows over here, the Uruk-hai and the crossbow Corsairs, must be a continuing worry for the defenders. But with the Castlemir's Chosen and the Harbingers of Castamir, looks like they are going to be victorious. Although, did the Harbingers retreat again? Yeah, it looks like they did. So the Castlemir's Chosen are able to sort of go toe-to-toe with the Talon Knights here with the support of the Trolls. And actually, the Legion Bodyguard are coming in over here. So I think the defenders smell blood here. I think they can destroy the Misty Mountains right here, right now. And they're right about that. Misty Mountains were on their own on their side, so they were always going to struggle a little bit more. But with the presence of the Troll Drummers, they aren't going to be able to rout these units as easily, which means the Misty Mountains are stuck in the fight for longer than they otherwise would have. So a good pick there for bringing the Drummers. But it's largely just Goblins over here. They do still have their Blackback Berserkers, and a pretty healthy number of Blackback Berserkers as well, considering it's mostly Spears over here. Not sure what they have left which would trade efficiently with the Blackback Berserkers. I suppose the closest thing they have is probably the Haven Guard. But even then, I wouldn't really recommend sending the Haven Guard into battle with the Blackbacks. Legion Bodyguard coming in here, trying to bring down the final Troll of the White Hand. Have a look over here. The Castlemir's Chosen still fighting hard. As we get into sort of the fight, well, near enough the final 10,000 frames. There's still 10,000 frames of this to go, which is perplexing. And actually, the percentage of the attackers killed has gone up, so the defenders are actually in the lead by 2% now. Which is interesting. We can see here the Umbar Catapult has moved forward. I don't know whether the defenders have got enough elite troops left to hold back what the attackers have left in store. Stuff like the Nazkai, although if they can bring it down to just a singular choke point they need to cover, they might have a lot of luck there. I mean, the Misty Mountains may have a big, important role to play in this yet. These Blackback Berserkers could yet be match winners if they are used wisely. These Troll Drummers are starting to use their instruments as weapons. And I think these Spears are honestly chasing the enemy too far down the hill at this point. With the presence of the Blackback Berserkers and the Troll Drummers, they aren't going to win this. But it's mainly the Blackbacks over here which are just going to be too strong. The Dol Amroth Catapult is still there. They still have that Haven Guard and Black Swan Vanguard over here. Tirithea Marksmen are fighting. A single Goblin got through the lines but was immediately routed off. This front line is starting to look a little bit haggard. The Legion Bodyguard and the Black Swans are now making up the primary bulk of the front line, and some of the Legion Bodyguard have got all the way back here. This front line over here is largely chaos, and this artillery which has just been dumped here is not really helping matters. This is honestly probably going to assist the defenders more than it is the attackers, the positioning of this. But it's the skirmishers for the attackers at this point. Those crossbows are going to be difficult to get through. These Talon Knights, only 6 of them remain. They've had a rather unfortunate fight thus far, but the Black Swans, on the other hand, have had a very good fight. And they are stopping the attackers in their tracks. So another wave is going to be required here. The other unit of Black Swans are coming forward. And yeah, now at this point, the Blackbacks have managed to sort of surround the Spears, which chase the enemy a little bit too far down this ramp. And this could be the mistake, the straw that breaks the camel's back here, because the defenders need every available man to defend the front. In this sort of outnumbered siege, of course, every mistake the defenders make is always going to be made to pay more than if you make a mistake as the attackers. As the attackers, you often have disposable troops. And actually the Haven Guard are coming over here. The Haven Guard are probably the one unit which can face the Blackback Berserkers in their current state. And they're also going to get a charge off. And with a charge, that means several of the Blackbacks are going to fall. But in a sustained fight, the Blackbacks are such a savage unit to take on that these Haven Guard are not going to get out of this unscathed. The Haven Guard are such a cool looking unit. They look almost like the Grey Wardens from Dragon Age. there isn't much in the way of spears left alive down here, which means the Blackbacks are going to be reinforced by what remains of the Goblin units and what remains of these Troll Drummers, which means the Haven Guard might need some support actually. And as we move back over to here, we can see that Umbar are starting to break through the front line. The Harbingers of Castamere getting in here, trying to silence the Nimrodel Rangers, which have just been a terror in the night for the attackers. There are also some Balagai Halberds moving forward, but the Harbingers of Castamere pushing through the line really did a lot of damage to them. They're also being shot in the side by the Orc Hunters, and also they're being attacked in the rear by the Black Swan Vanguard, who are of course AP. And again, in a similar vein to the Dwarven elite units earlier on, there goes the Misty Mountains General there, at the hands of the Haven Guard. In a similar vein to the Dwarven elites earlier on, the Harbingers of Castamere are isolated and all on their own over here. They are now being supported by Uruk-hai infantry, but they took a huge amount of damage on the way through. And honestly, they should still fall away, probably. I mean, there are no more reserves for the defenders. Everything has largely been committed at this point, although the Legion Bodyguard and the Black Swans are still fighting hard. Again, these Tirith Aya Wardens have moved forward just to sort of hold up the rest of the attacking forces. So I imagine they're going to try and focus down these guys within the town centre, and then form up a defensive line to deal with what's left over there. There are those Naruna Aru Royal Archers and the Nazkai still left alive and in perfect condition. But these Haven Guard, only 2 of them have fallen, and they are going to be able to defeat the Blackback Berserkers, and then they are going to be able to get onto the other front line, although it looks like now the Nimrodel Rangers are being accosted in melee by some Uruk-hai infantry. Although again, the Uruk-hai infantry is going to be, the price for pushing through is going to be high. The Black Swans are going to crush their skulls with their maces. There's a single infantryman over here. There's also these Tirithea marksmen, which have their swords out now, so presumably they're out of ammunition. The Nimrodel Rangers pull out their long blades. Ooh, and this is a unit which I'm not sure the defenders have the capability to take on anymore. The Nazkai. This might be a bridge too far. They're an incredibly dangerous infantry unit in this sort of situation. All the attacking power of Berserkers without, more attacking power than the Berserkers even, but without the downsides. Those giant Berserker great swords. But now, a counter-attack, and I do believe the Nimrodel Rangers are out of ammunition because they are charging into melee. And actually the Naruna Aru Royal Archers that are over here are a bit isolated. So this means they are going to be sort of cut down by the Legion Bodyguard and the Nimrodel Rangers. And honestly, the attackers don't have all that much left. I mean, this is it. They've got some crossbow Corsairs and some Uruk-hai crossbows. But the Naruna Aru and the Nazkai might be the way the attackers have to win this at this point. If we have a look at the percentages, yeah, still a 2% difference. I mean, these Nazkai are going to be really difficult to take down, but if those Haven Guard can turn around, and if they're in relatively good shape, which it looks like they're going to be, there's still 30 of them left, only 3 of them died to the Blackback Berserkers. So the damage the Blackbacks took in that grindy frontline engagement must have been pretty telling, because usually the Haven Guard would take more casualties than that, I feel. Those Tirithea marksmen have got some ammunition left as well. Over here we've got a small microcosm of the fight as these Uruk-hai infantry are going to start to slowly but surely pick away at these stragglers over here. And over here we can see a duel for the ages. Well, there was a duel for the ages. Those Black Swans got ripped apart by the Nazkai though, and now the Nazkai are going to get a charge into the Haven Guard. The Haven Guard do respond in kind. I think the Nazkai should probably win this, although having said that, the Haven Guard still have superior numbers. Will they be the heroes of the hour? I think they're going to need to be. Although, having said that, over here, well, there are some catapult crew over here, but there's not much left for the attackers at this point. Uruk-hai crossbows. Yeah, those Naruna Aru Royal Archers, there are 16 of them left, and to be fair, their presence is probably making it so that victory seems certain for them. The Legion Bodyguard are going to need to really start to get some kills over here. Well, that's the officer for the crossbow Corsairs, but it's complete chaos. Will the Naruna... There's Castamere himself, fighting on the front line with his brass or gold armour. Yeah, those Tirithea Wardens, I mean, spears when they're surrounded are not terribly useful like this. The amount of kills they're going to get is largely going to be relatively muted. These Uruk-hai crossbows are there. These Tirithea marksmen. They still have ammunition apparently, and that could be the key here. They're going to need that ammunition. There's all of these routing units. What is going on over here? Haven Guard and the Nazkai. I think the Nazkai are slowly but surely cutting their way through the Haven Guard. And yeah, they are. Although those Tirithea... What is this over here? We've got the Legion Bodyguard coming over here to try and lend a hand. And with the Legion Bodyguard and with that minor ranged support, that might be enough to turn this fight around. There's Saruman with his staff. What a fight for the ages this is. Oh, and there goes the Isengard General. The Haven Guard have really done an awful lot of work in this match. Very impressive. As you would expect from Dol Amroth's finest, although Imrahil is in here as well. He needs to be careful he doesn't die. I would not have retreated from that. That is dangerous, and also you're leaving the Legion Bodyguard essentially to their deaths. And then over here we have the Tirithea marksmen. Still with their ammunition, which still could be extremely useful. Over here it looks like the attackers are going to be victorious, but there's not going to be much left. I mean, really, there's 12 Naruna Aru Royal Archers and a few skirmishers of little consequence. And now the Nazkai are going to come forward and just... There goes Balin. The Nazkai killing the Dwarven General. Tirithea marksman. I think the attackers have probably got this, just. I think the Nazkai are just too strong. And they still have those Naruna Aru archers. I don't think the Haven Guard are going to have what it takes to beat them all. What is going on in terms of percentages? Dead even, 98 to 98. Saruman is still alive. I don't know, there's still a Harbinger of Castamere left alive as well. Well, it's a banner carrier. There's some Tirithea Wardens over here. Every little helps at this stage. I mean, it's all hands to the, you know, all hands on deck. They need to bring down these Nazkai somehow. Those sentries of Khazad-dûm came... You know, I'm not sure how long they've been alive. They've come back from routing, and the position of those crossbows, I think that's going to be game over. Crossbows have got the perfect firing position. Although the archers are trying to shoot into them now. Haven Guard trying to get away. The Umbar catapult is remounted. Not much Nazkai left alive. This is still rather up in the air. I mean, the Haven Guard are going for the catapult. That's a mistake. They should be going for the crossbows. The catapult, there's so few men left that the catapult's honestly got a very limited chance of hitting. And the crossbows are going to do much more damage anyway. Here we can see the Tirithea Warden's defeat is a distinct possibility. They are at least tying up the Nazkai, but if we have a look up here, the Naruna Aru are better in melee than the Tirithea. But it's still not entirely decided. I mean, now the Haven Guard are hunting down the Uruk-hai crossbows with a good deal of success. There's only 9 of them remaining. But these men are also wavering. Imrahil, leading by example. These crossbows are going to rout as well in the face of the Haven Guard. They're trying to sort of fire point blank, I think. Well, if we have a look over here, these Nazkai cutting their way through the Tirithea Wardens. And the Tirithea marksmen are no match in melee for the Naruna Aru, although they are having to fight uphill. They're also being backed up by what's left of the catapult crew and the crossbow corsairs. This is the closest battle I've seen in a while. And now the Nazkai are able to get a charge off on the Haven Guard. There's a single pikeman coming in, doing his best, doing his bit for the war effort. Defeat seems certain for the Nazkai. That's rather interesting. I imagine when the... Oof. Well, maybe not anymore. There goes the pikeman. Imrahil, with his face all bloodied. Trying his best, but I think the Nazkai have got this. I think they're just too... Their attack is just too devastating, I think, for the Haven Guard, especially seeing as the Haven Guard saw a whole battle against the Blackbacks before they went into melee against the Nazkai. Oh, there goes Imrahil. He's been knocked over. Can he get up? No. Saruman and one of his lackeys brings the Prince of Dol Amroth down. And this is going to be the end. The Tirithea marksmen are not going to have enough to beat the Naruna Aru and the Nazkai, so the attackers are going to win this. Just. 99% to 99%. Within 1%. Saruman is dead though. And these Haven Guard, in a fit of rage over Imrahil's demise, looks like they're actually going to be victorious over the Nazkai in the end, so an extremely good performance by the Haven Guard here. At least I assume they're going to be victorious. I mean, I don't think these two Haven Guardsmen are going to have enough to turn the tide. Yeah, I mean, there's a catapult crew. There's those sentries of Khazad-dûm that are still fighting. Would you bet against these guys now? Well, I mean, there's only one of them left now. He's going to get another kill, though. The insolence of interrupting this duel of the ages. Yeah, the Nazkai ultimately... I think the Haven Guard, if it wasn't for the interruption of that catapult crew, the Haven Guard may well have won that. But still, the Nazkai claiming ultimate victory. There are still 10 Tirithea marksmen up here. They still have ammunition, amazingly, as well. Looks like they're going to get a volley off. Just firing into the crowd at this point, trying to get what kills they can. There's still just over 1,000 frames left to go. Castamir, however, looks like he's going to be the only general left standing unless he is brought down by these marksmen. He and his Naru Naaru will be victorious amongst a sea of bodies. What a close battle this was. But I do, you know, it is now beyond the attackers. The Naru Naaru are just a better unit in melee than the Tirithea marksmen. And it is going to be 99% to 100%. There's one Tirithea marksman just sort of waddling around in the town centre over there while his fellows fight and die. I think they're trying to sort of get away so they can use their ammunition, but at this point there's not really much point. Because a volley from a unit of only 6 or 7 is not going to be enough to kill anything in terms of the Naru Naaru. There's still these officers over here. There's a warden. There's the one Nazkai left alive. As the fight continues to wind down. No rest for the wicked, my friends. You're not going to be able to pull out your bows. You must fight and die in melee. That catapult crew is still alive as well. So Steph is really the only army with anything significant left alive. 420 no scope has got a single soldier. And Dol Amroth is about to be brought down. See the dead Nazkai and the dwarves on the floor. That was a chaotic fight over there, which definitely went in favour of the defenders, because I think the attackers had a not insubstantial advantage going into the sort of final phase of this fight. I think the Misty Mountains player played very well. But ultimately going so skirmish heavy may have hurt Dol Amroth's outer defence. I feel as though just going for the Rangers and some basic archers probably would have been the better choice, and then going for some more line holding infantry. More Halberdiers in particular would have been very useful in this late stage for holding that line against stuff like the armoured trolls. But victory is the attackers, but a very, very close fought battle it was. Having a look, Dol Amroth getting a ton of kills. I can imagine that the Rangers probably got in excess of 1,500 kills here, because that's how Rangers operate currently. The Misty Mountains getting a large amount of kills. They did very well considering he was on his own. And then Umbar and Isengard working well enough together that they were able to overcome the defenders in the end, despite a resolute showing in the late game. Having a look at the Misty Mountains and how many kills they got. Heavy Goblin Spears with 115. Blackback Berserkers was 60, so they were doing well until the Haven Guard came knocking. But it was really the Cave Trolls I think the Misty Mountains did very well with, because they broke through the Dwarven line, and they also laid the guards of Khazad-dûm and the Mithril Guard low with the assistance of their Goblin Horde. So yeah, the Cave Trolls did very, very well, and were definitely, at least on the Misty Mountains Dwarven side of things in the early game, the match winners over there. So very well played. Thank you very much to Lucky Hussar for sending this replay to me, because it was indeed very, very close, and it's good to see MORIA again. Of course, it hasn't actually changed since vanilla MORIA, it's always been the same. But even so, it's good to see the dwarves fight on their home turf, even if they ended up losing to their hated goblin enemies. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.